Well, hi to everyone who's joining us today. I'd like to welcome you to the very first RTO Online Cafe. What we hope will be one of the first of many online meetings where you can explore ideas and approaches related to your RTO business. So please feel free to ask any question that's related to your RTO, and we will do our best to provide you with helpful answers. If we feel we don't have enough material on hand to answer your question, we'll do a little bit of research and look through our files, and we'll get back to you via email. The RTO Online Cafe will be held on the second Friday of every month at 12:30 p.m. Starting today, but we're going to skip January and kick off again in February 2014. Well, this guy looks pretty comfy. I hope you are as well. Maybe not as comfortable, as it's not a good idea, I guess, to have your feet on the keyboard. You never know what you're going to type out. Um, let's let's do a few tests to make sure that everything's working okay. So first, I want to do a sound check. So can everyone hear me okay? And I've got Karen with me as well. So can everyone hear me and can everyone hear Karen?
Hi everyone.
So if you can hear us, you just type in the chat box that you've got on your right. And all right, that's good. It sounds like everyone can hear us okay. Okay. Well, the next thing we want to do a screen check. Everyone can see the screen okay. That's great. People can see the screen. And lastly, just want to check that the chat box is working okay. So if you can just type into the chat box, or might be called the question box, you just type in there and we can see if everything's working okay, and then we can get into it. All right, great. Seems like we're all ready to go. Thanks for doing that. Before we get into it, I just want to tell you a little bit about the presenters for today. Unfortunately, Gillian couldn't be here. She's deep in the belly of a client audit. Poor girl. So today you're stuck with Team Karen and Darren. And yes, we're both here at the same computer, the same microphone, right next to each other. Very intimate, and we are ready to go. So let me tell you a little bit about Karen. Karen's worked in the vet sector for more than 13 years in various roles as a trainer, assessor, and consultant, helping RTOs with a wide range of compliance and business issues. Karen also serves on the board of a non-profit agency and has got first-hand experience with establishing governance, compliance, and risk systems. Karen's also had 25 years' experience in HR and training in organisations such as St George Bank and the University of New South Wales. And for myself, Darren, for the past 20 years, I've worked in communications, brand, and marketing strategy. And before joining the learning community, I owned and operated a medium-sized brand agency called Blue Hat with offices around the country. All right, well, let's get into it. This is what we're going to cover today. It's basically a question and answer session. We've had some questions that have come in previous to the webinar, so we'll look at addressing some of those. So thanks for sending those in. If you have a question related to your RTO, any kind of RTO function or marketing in general, just type away into the chat box, and we can address that question. At the end of every question, feel free to ask follow-up questions if we haven't covered everything that you'd like to know. All right, so while you're thinking about your questions and typing them into the chat box or the question box, we'll start with a few questions that were sent in before the webinar. So the first question I'll hand over to Karen.
Okay, so we often get asked when we're looking at building performance in an RTO, how can I actually build a performance culture? How can it become something that is just the normal part of the way that we do business? And obviously, one of the key goals in any business is to have a highly performing organisation. And what we've found in general is that organisations that perform consistently well have this performance culture embedded in the way that they do business. So, what that means really is that their ongoing success is not due to chance or a random set of environmental factors that come together, just to produce a good year just by chance. Their success is due to the presence of this performance culture. But in RTOs, it's not always easy to do. And it's particularly difficult in an RTO that employs their trainers and assessors on a casual or contract or part-time basis, which is a very common practice across this sector. So, and what often happens is these staff work in other RTOs as well as they build up a full-time complement of training, and it becomes very difficult to engage them in the strategic directions of your RTO when you know that they're working in others that are your competitors as well. So we wanted to have a look at what are some of the key steps that you can consider in building this performance culture in your RTO. So the first point is to evaluate the factors that influence your performance. So think about things like what are some of the external factors that might be impacting on your RTO, and there's lots of things that you could think about here, like increased competition or what's happening in the political environment, or you might be experiencing demand or decline in student numbers, or there might be changes that are happening in the industry that you're preparing students to work in. Or there could be a shift in preferences from your learners to more online, just in time type delivery options. So there's some of the factors that you can think about. There's also consideration of whether there is a culture of planning in your RTO. How does planning happen? Do staff get involved in that process, or is it really a top senior executive function only and staff aren't engaged in that? You'll find a performance culture exists in places where staff are involved in the planning process as well. The second strategy there is to try and link your performance culture to strategy. So, what's your strategic framework? Is there a clear set of policies and procedures? Is there measurable targets? And do people have a clear understanding of what they're meant to be doing? And are all those things aligned with the strategic directions of the RTO? Or is there a bit more of a silo approach happening where people plan their own directions and it may not necessarily be building towards achieving the big picture goals that the RTO as a whole is hoping to achieve? The third key here really is to look at building capacity across your staff or communities of practice where there's a shared approach to development of material, of learning, that there's not a tendency within the staff to learn something and keep it to themselves, that there's an openness to share those experiences and build capacity across the whole team rather than it be sitting in pockets within the RTO. And fourthly, which is what we talked about last time in the webinar as well, building a focus on continuous improvement. That becomes part of the way that you do things, that is contributing towards this culture of performance across the RTO. And we'll talk more about that in detail in our next webinar in February. So they're the key things that I've observed. Is there any further questions related to this idea of building a performance culture in your RTO? We'll just give you time to type a question, or we'll move on to another question.
Just a quick sound check. A few people have typed in the box that they're having a hard time hearing. If you are having a hard time hearing, can you let us know, please?
Okay, we've got a couple of other questions that have been sent in beforehand, and we thought we'd give you a chance to decide which one you might like to hear about. We had a question on social media and using social media within an RTO context, and we had also had a question around how do you determine what the training needs are of the trainers so you can start to more to target and tailor the professional development that you offer. So if you're interested in either of those questions, can we get you to type in the chat box an S if you're interested in social media, or a T if you're interested in discussing training needs?
Okay, so it seems like people want to maybe jump into social media. Just looking at all the comments that are coming in. All right, well, I'll skip through the slides to social media, and we'll give that question a go, and we can always come back to some of the other questions. So a question that we get asked a lot is, Uh, why should I use social media in my business, or in particular in this case, why should I use social media for my RTO? It just seems like a bit of a waste of time, a bit of a black hole. How do I make money out of it? Lots of really great questions. Um, before I get into some of the I guess the big picture answers to those questions, I just want to qualify it by saying that personally, I don't love social media. I'm not a social media fanatic for lots of reasons personally, but I know that it is a great tool for business if used correctly. And I've helped lots of businesses significantly grow their businesses on a social media or online platform. So the reason why I qualify that is because a lot of people think, oh, you have to love it or you have to be just absolutely fantastic in it to actually make it work for your business, and that's not the case. Now, let me give you three compelling reasons why you should be using social media for your business or for your RTO. And the first uh, reason is this is where most of your current and potential students spend a lot of their time. Next time you're out in public, I just want you to observe people's behaviour, whether it's on the train or in line at a bank or um, waiting, for your sushi, whatever you're doing. Just next time you're out in public, take a look at what people uh, are doing. Now I pick my kids up from school, and there's hundreds of parents, and every single one of them, without fail, even if they're in a conversation, they've got their smartphone in their hand, or on a train. Everyone has got their phone out. What are they doing? They're probably multitasking, doing a few things at the same time. They're on Facebook or Twitter. They're listening to music and they're texting their friends or possibly checking some email. Just observe people's behavior and you'll be surprised at how many people, more often than not, have a smartphone in their hand. And you probably do it yourself. You're in the car with someone, you're the passenger, they're driving, they stop to go and grab something, fill up with petrol, whatever they're doing. What's the first thing you do? You can't sit there by yourself for 5 minutes without grabbing out your phone and checking an email or texting someone or jumping on Facebook. It's so common behaviour. It's a little bit scary in some ways. So the first thing, basically, just watch people's behaviour. It's where most people, your current and potential students, will spend a lot of their time. Here's some statistics. 88% of Australians are online, and 88% of those people use social media more than 3 hours per day. That's right, more than 3 hours per day. So surprising, isn't it? And over 50% of those people access their social media via their smartphones. Uh, a statistic that I read the other day for Australians on Facebook, 9 million Australians every day are on Facebook. So, most of your people, without fail, regardless of their age or their gender, are going to be on it at some point in time. Okay, secondly, so the first point is it's where most of your people that you want to communicate with are going to be. Secondly, it greatly influences buying decisions. Now, people mainly make buying decisions based on recommendations, and recommendations are still the greatest influencer. So, what is said on social media is going to then become a major influence because it's a social platform. So, potential students will be influenced by recommendations that other students are going to make, particularly students that they know. So social media is a great way to build your reputation. And a recent study that was done by Google and by HubSpot uh, confirmed that 10.4 interactions are required with your brand before a person is ready to make a decision. So they might see something on email or on a website or on social media, a number of contexts. They're going to require around 10.4 interactions with your brand before they're ready to make a decision to join, to buy, to support, whatever the call to action that you require. So social media is great for that because they're going to see your brand and what you're on about um, multiple times on social media. Another point that it greatly influences buying decisions: the more people who say good things about your brand, the greater your social proof. The stronger your social proof, the more business you're going to get. Social media is fantastic for social proof. Let me just tell you a little bit quickly what social proof is. I want you to imagine two restaurants. They're both serving the same types of food in the same street. One restaurant is quiet, there's no one in there. The other restaurant has got a line out the door. That's social proof. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to the restaurant that has a line of people out the door. That is what social media is great for building your social proof. And lastly, these are three of many reasons, by the way. I've just picked some of the top three. It's the easiest way for others to spread the word. People love sharing what they think is valuable, what they think is interesting, what they think is funny and important. And so if you position your brand, your RTO correctly, people will end up doing the marketing for you as they share what they think is valuable, what they think is interesting, what they think is funny, what they think is important. And social media has greater reach than any other medium. So, in summary, social media is not a fad. It's here to stay and it affects everything. It will determine how people view your brand, whether or not your brand is worth following. It'll determine if people think your brand is legitimate. If you're on social media, many will assume that you're serious about engaging them and that you're serious about the future. And the opposite is also true. If you are not on social media, many will assume that you're not serious about engaging them and that you're not serious about the future. So, really, it's an effective and manageable way to grow your business. So, having an active online presence, and in particular social media, is an effective way to engage both current and potential students. It's relatively cheap, there's a stack of tools and people to help. It's a context in which you can move quickly, get some traction very quickly. And the best strategies that I've seen, the best strategies that I've created for our clients, have been a combination of online media, including something like a blog, with email and social media, utilising the database you've got effectively. Next year, we're going to be running a handful of webinars, particularly on social media and your RTO. So watch out in your inbox and we'll let you know when they're happening. All right, well, that's all for that question. Now, we've got a few other questions that have come in. Let's see which one we're going to do next. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Karen and we're going to address the next question that's come in.
Okay, so one of the things that came up as a priority that um, you're managing right now in the survey we did for the last webinar was professional development for your trainers. And so a logical question that comes from that is what skills, therefore, should trainers be developing? IBSA have just recently produced a set of resources that are very helpful in answering this question, and I've drawn on their resources today to put forward some suggestions in relation to this. Um, we'll put a link to the IBSA material in the email that follows this. It's called the Vet Practitioner Capability Framework, and some of you may have seen this, but you can use this framework for a number of purposes, and identifying training needs is just one of them. So the framework shows that the types of skills that trainers need to develop, and there's no surprise here, I'm sure, it centres around these four areas, and then some other generic skills that I'll show you in a minute. So teaching. And there's in that area, it's things like learning theories and strategies, course design skills, facilitation skills, evaluation skills. So when you're looking at identifying do trainers need to develop their teaching skills, some of those areas might be things you can focus on. Or in relation to assessment, how to conduct assessment effectively, how to develop assessment tools, how to validate and moderate the assessment decisions that are being made. Again, all very important focuses that can be addressed within a professional development type of activity. Industry and community collaboration came up as one of these top four areas. And so this is talking about those skills that are required to keep up to date with industry trends, with industry practices. So things like relationship building skills, networking skills, and just being involved in the practice of collaborating with industry to inform your training design could also again be a focus for skill development. And lastly, their systems and compliance skills. So keeping up to date with what are the current vet standards, what are the regulations, what are the training packages that are related to the courses that you're delivering, and are there changes, and how do you stay on top of those changes? What are the organisational policies and procedures relating to compliance, and what record keeping policies and practices are related to compliance? So, a focus on all of those or some of those aspects of compliance could be areas to pursue in terms of professional development for your trainers. Next slide. The other key skills that came up in this framework from IBSA are listed up on the screen there as well. And again, when you think about the role of a trainer, there's probably not any great surprises there. So communication skills, things like what are their persuasive skills like? What are the um, more complex communication skills that are required to manage very diverse groups? Focus on something like that. Leadership skills, things like their self awareness, their capacity to role model, their capacity to lead a team, direct a team, lead a team of students. So, a focus on developing leadership skills could be another area. Decision making and ethical practice. What providing some support, some frameworks, some training in how to make ethical decisions, which obviously affects the performance of your business. Cultural competence, and this is a big hot topic, isn't it, with the LLN changes in the TAE. But what is their understanding of LLN? How capable are they of managing a classroom with various cultures within it? What are their cross-cultural skills and understanding like? So focus on training in that area. Innovation, change management and creativity all come into here. And again, there's a range of professional development approaches that you could take to focus on facilitating and cultivating innovative skills within your trainers. And then lastly, evidence-based practice. And this might not be something that you've thought of in terms of focusing your training, but what sort of research skills do your staff have? What involvement do they have in evaluating a program and looking for evidence of its results, and then incorporating those findings within a redesign of a program? So they need critical analysis skills. They need research skills to focus on there. In the IBSA pack of resources, there is a whole range of tools. There's performance appraisal tools, and there's checklists and self-assessment checklists. So it's quite a thorough package, and it addresses all of these training areas within the package. So I encourage you to have a look at that. But this perhaps will focus the type of training that you want to deliver for your trainers. So again, I'll just ask if you'd like to ask a follow-up question about that to type it in the chat box. And we can address anything specifically in relation to that. So I'll just give you a minute to type a question in the chat box.
Okay, it seems like everyone's quite happy with those the answers. That's great. There's lots of affirmation to say that that's helpful. Thank you very much for that feedback. So let's move on to the next question that's come in, which is which one, Karen? What question are we going to deal with now?
We got a question from the last webinar that we didn't get to answer in the webinar. We put it in an email, but I thought we would just address it in here as well. And it's summarised on the screen there. The question was a little bit longer than this, but basically there was a comment and a question. So the thought about doing professional development for trainers and other staff, and reviewing your operations and looking at compliance is obviously important, and is as the question says, because it's necessary. But in the environment that you work in this environment of constant change, and with all of these changes, it is resulting in your work and assessments taking longer. And in the midst of that, there's less funding and there's greater compliance requirements. So it's a very complex environment. The question is, how do you get the balance right? You know, as a CEO, as a senior manager in an RTO, how do you balance all this stuff and get it right in the midst of this tightening, more difficult compliance environment? So I guess I interpreted this question as a bit of a question about time. It is a very complex environment that you're working at, and it's true that running an effective RTO that remains compliant at all times is a really time-consuming task. But it really is one of the fundamental aspects of managing an RTO. So I guess I've put a few points down in relation to time management because you are juggling an enormous amount of responsibilities. So hopefully these 3 points might just give you some clues into how you might get on top of some of this in your own work life. The first one is to plan ahead. Now, obviously, this is a desire for probably all of us and doesn't always happen. But basically, what I'm saying here is if you implement a systematic and planned approach to your continuous improvement across all aspects of your RTO, and that fits with the workflow of your RTO. So you're not trying to do a whole lot of planning in the midst of your busiest peak time in terms of training, but that you get a flow that works for your peak times and your quieter times. And that you identify what are some of those quieter times within a year that you can plan to do some of the significant compliance activities um, that are required across a year. So I guess the first tip is in juggling all of these very varied tasks is to plan ahead and think about the whole of your year and identify the peak and trough times that you might be able to take advantage of. Secondly, delegate. And I know for some of you, you're in small RTOs where you may not have the the benefit of being able to delegate to someone else, but where you can, think about how you can assign some of the responsibilities that you are carrying to appropriate team members. Don't try and manage all the tasks yourself. And yes, it's true that a CEO always remains accountable for the activities of the RTO. It is appropriate to delegate some tasks, but what you need to be careful of in doing that is that you're not letting go of the responsibility. You're not abrogating the responsibility of compliance to the staff member that you are delegating to. You need to stay engaged, you need to monitor what's happening, but you don't need to do it all. And so I guess that's one of the keys in trying to juggle all of this. And the last one is document as you go. Don't leave it till just before an audit to try and gather your evidence together. So try and build a discipline across your RTO of effective record keeping all the time on an ongoing basis as you go. Don't leave it to the end of term or just before an audit because you know that that becomes a very chaotic time and mistakes are likely to be made when that's the approach. So yes, I very much feel for you in what you're juggling, but some of these tips might help you to take control a little bit of the things that are able to be taken control of.
And I'd just like to add there, document as you go, sure, but also have backups of everything. We recently have had an example of an RTO who have been documenting as they go, but the week before their audit, they were infected with the virus, just a mistake that one of their staff had made, and they are really having a hard time getting all the information together to fulfill their audit. So my recommendation is to back up online if you can, outside of your office, back up on a hard drive, take that home, store it somewhere, do it as regularly as you can. Have a system that backs up. Um, it's such important content for you and it is so valuable. And if you lose it, it is disastrous. So it's my encouragement. If you don't know how to do that, find an IT specialist and they will walk you through it and set up a system to back up because from our experience working with RTOs that has happened just uncannily right at the time when they didn't need it to happen. It happened and it's takes a lot of time and a lot of money to get it up to speed so they can fulfill their audit requirements. So let's hope that that doesn't happen to you. All right, so that's all the questions that have come in so far. Maybe if you've got one last question or a follow-up question from any of the content that we've dealt with so far, just type away into your chat box and we'll address that. as we can. So I'll give you a little bit of a thinking time. Anything that you need to know, any follow-up questions from any of the questions that we've dealt with so far? All right, well, thank you for your confirmation that everything's been covered well. And just a reminder, we're going to go in more depth with these themes in subsequent webinars next year. Remember, we'll have the RTO Online Cafe once a month, beginning again in February. But we're also got a webinar series that are going to dig deeper into some of these themes that we're talking about today. All right, well, thank you for all those questions. Just wanted to tell you a little bit about some of our products and services that are available to help you. We've got a library of helpful resources that you can buy. They're very well priced, below half price. Um, we really don't want to make price an issue. We really want them in the hands of the people that are going to benefit from them the most, and so we've put them as cheap as we possibly can. And all the details will be in an email after the webinar. So I'll hand over to Karen. She'll explain a little bit more about these products.
So we've got a series of short little guides that we're calling Get Smart with Great Staff Guides, and they cover topics like recruitment and selection, performance appraisal, performance management, orientation. So some of the key things that you need to do in managing your staff, and within them there are a range of templates and position descriptions and tools that will help you with some of these HR functions. We've also just released a suite of assessment tools for business courses, and to support those, there's also a business simulation that for those students who don't have access to a workplace to complete their assessments, this simulation may help you to support a simulated approach to their assessment. We have a very comprehensive policy and procedures manual that again can be customised by you, but has all of the supporting forms and documents that support the policies. And you can buy those as individual policy packs if you already have a policy manual and just want to update some aspect of it. We also have a range of audit services available to you that I think has it already been sent out in an email?
No, that we will send an
Yep.
email probably early in the new year, but we've got a wide range of audit services available, and you've got different options to suit most budgets.
And also, we're very willing to come in and help you with other things too, like your brand and marketing strategies or business improvement strategies in general.
Okay, so products you'll be able to find on our website, thelearningcommunity.com.au/products. The website is not complete yet, but we've got some products up there which you can take a look at and see some samples and buy if you're interested. And you can also contact us on our email, info@thelearningcommunity.com.au. Now, just a reminder, the next webinar, Wednesday, February the 12th, looking at systematic approach to continuous improvement, which is the second part of the webinar that we ran a couple of weeks ago on compliance. And then the next RTO Online Cafe will be on February 14, just 2 days after that. And again, if you've got questions, shoot them through to us and we'll do our best to address them. And they're all free, these webinars. We'd like to offer these things for free, so it's helpful for you and address anything that you need to help run your RTO. Well, thank you very much for today. Thanks for joining us. I know it's close to Christmas and you're busy and you're winding down. You want to have Christmas drinks, Christmas lunch. Enjoy the sun if you're in Sydney. But we really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again on February 12 or February 14 at one of our webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.